Hello and welcome to a new episode of our award-winning MVP, The Master's Voice podcast from Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pawan R. Chawla, founder-editor of Mediabrief.com, and I am delighted to welcome one of the most respected leaders in the space of strategic comms consulting. Please join me as I welcome Arwa Husain, Director of Financial Services at India's biggest and most awarded and respected communications firm, AdFactors PR. Arwa, welcome to MVP, the Master's Voice podcast.
Hi, Pawan. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and presence on the Master's Voice podcast, Arwa. And thanks also to Nikhil Punchi of your team for having made this interaction possible. So, Arwa, before we continue, please allow me to introduce you to my listeners. My distinguished guest on this episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast is Arwa Husain, Director of Financial Services at Adfactors PR. Arwa is a key member of the senior management team at Adfactors PR. With a focus on the financial services practice, Arwa oversees the largest BFSI vertical, not just in India, hold your breath, but in Asia. Ever since she joined Adfactors PR in 2006, Arwa has played a vital role in driving business growth in the financial services sector. Her responsibilities encompass offering strategic counsel at the board level, cultivating and managing crucial relationships, professional relationships across all the stakeholders across the entire spectrum, and leading teams to achieve clients' strategic objectives. And of course, she was and has been one of the leaders and pioneers from the traditional media times. She is a young veteran, but today she is far out and ahead of the digital curve, helping and empowering her teams to be with her. Arwa's diverse portfolio includes major MNC banks, investment banks, life insurance companies, non-life insurers, fintech firms, and global private equity investors. She has served clients with varying levels of complexity, ranging from private equity investors with a few transactions per year to nationwide retail distribution life insurance companies and several more. Several of Arwa's clients have garnered global recognition for their corporate reputation management and campaign planning. Notable among those are ICICI Bank, Upstocks, ICICI Lombard, Lead School, DBS Bank, TMB, to name just a few. Arwa has close to 2 decades of work experience. She started her career as a journalist with a leading financial daily in Mumbai, followed by equity research, and then on to public relations. She has a master's degree in economics from Mumbai University and is an alumnus of an executive program at Harvard University. So that's briefly about Arwa Husain, Director of Financial Services at Adfactors PR, and my distinguished guest on this episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast from Mediabrief.com. Arwa, welcome once again. Long introduction, I know, but you've done so much. And now, let's begin our conversation. So Arwa, you've been part of and working with the core senior leadership group at Adfactors PR for a long time now, more than 2 decades. So while you are a driving force for the massive growth of the BFSI practice at Adfactors PR, you've also been important and a strategic part and a leader with the rest of the leadership in the overall growth of Adfactors PR over the years. And we'll come to that soon. But first, let me ask you about the agency overall before I speak about the BFSI practice, which is what this podcast is really in large part about. But please walk me through the milestones of the growth of Adfactors PR over the years.
Okay, so as Pawan, as you know, we started 25 years ago as an offshoot of the advertising arm, which today completes, I think, 41 years.
Wow.
In the 25-year journey, there have been ups and downs. And I think when I came in, which was in 2006, at that point in time, Madan and Rajesh were really building the agency by the acquisition of talent, and therefore Dr. Rajay, I, and some of the others who joined in. It was a talent build out that we did. And that talent build out has continued even till date, and even in the COVID. In a period of COVID, we have actually gone ahead and hired senior talent. So one big reason for Adfactors' success is picking talent and picking talent at the right and an opportune time. The second most important thing that is there is that we were able to see market opportunities. And therefore, we have always gone in where the market movement was happening. And through this 25 years of journey, when we came in from an offshoot of BFSI, that's what we built out. But then 2008, the Lehman Brothers collapse happened. And therefore, at that point in time, Adfactors decided that, if 90% of the revenue was coming in from BFSI, that's not what we should be in. And therefore, we branched out and we entered multiple other sectors. In 2010, from where we started off in 1997, in 2010, we had achieved leadership position, and today we have continued in the last 13 years to hold on to that position. And today we are 400 crores.
Wow.
Some of the other things that happened, so while we have continued to build, and even in the pandemic, we got in new practices. Some of the new practices that we started were frontier technology, mobility, new economy, and fintech. But even in 2008, we started a practice which was PR 24 by 7, and that was a completely out of the crisis situation. And at that point in time, clients could pick up the phone at any hour of the day, given what the collapse that had happened and the world had gone into a havoc situation. We were available for our clients. That year as well, we grew. At that time, Madan and Rajesh had a meeting and said that none of you will lose your jobs. The same thing happened in the COVID period. Same conversation. None of us lose your jobs. No one will have a cut in their salary. And very clear. So it is very, very clear in the way we approach things. And that is really held us in the journey that we've had. Absolute clarity and focus on growth. So this is the second thing. And the third thing is really the fact that empathy will always be at the forefront of it. And we will do everything that we can to ensure that our people and our clients, both, it's not for us just our people, but our people and our clients are in a state of delight with us. And another thing that I would say is all through this time, L&D, learning and development, has been the most important thing because domain knowledge is very, very critical to us. In fact, that's one of the main differentiators for us. We invest a lot in ensuring that each of our sector verticals and leads have an understanding of that business, and that's the main differentiator that we bring to the table, along with the excellent media relationships that we bring in. So these are some of the things that have happened in our journey. Digital has again been very early on. We've picked that on, and in the years to come, in the kind of work that you will see Adfactors deliver on digital will be very, very different from what the rest of the market does. And I would say on that one, watch the space.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it's obviously the combination of all these wonderful things that you just mentioned, listed out, that AdFactors PR is India's, and Adfactors is India's single largest independent communication conglomerate.
Yes. And I can also tell you that additionally, Pawan, that we will always remain independent because what we strive and what we like is independence and entrepreneurship. And if every one of us think of us as entrepreneurs, we have to have the flexibility and the freedom to build and craft the practice and the business in the way we want to build it. In fact, I can tell you that Madan and Rajesh do not interfere at all. The way in which we want to drive it is really entirely up to us. And that kind of freedom, I think, can only come with you being independent.
Wonderful. Amazing growth across the board for Adfactors PR over the years, Arwa. Today, Adfactors PR is India's biggest PR agency, bigger than perhaps numbers 2, 3 and 4 put together, if I'm not wrong. And the BFSI practice within Adfactors PR is bigger than the PR agency ranked at number 2 nationally. And of course, like I said, it's the biggest practice in BFSI across Asia. And there are multiple other leading practices. But coming back to the question I had in mind, how have you built, along with your team, of course, another company within the company by achieving such massive growth at scale for BFSI?
I'd say a couple of things. So first and foremost, I think the belief that we have in Adfactors, and this is consistent with any leader that you would interact with in Adfactors, all the senior leadership, the belief that, you set a target and that can be achieved.
Wow.
So that's number one. And that target is not set random. The market opportunity itself is that much that one can dip into it and it will still not be enough. So that is the principal thing, I think, assessing the market. The second is the whole entrepreneurial spirit that brings the leadership and every single person in Adfactors. I think that's another major differentiation that has happened. And in BFSI, the benefit of the fact that we have people like Dr. Rajay or George, or in the past we have had Hemant, who has been instrumental in building the business. I think all of this collaboration really has worked to being where the BFSI practice is today. So I would say that it is the toil and hard work of every single individual on a every single day basis. And that commitment, I think, that the leaders of the BFSI have has been one of the reasons why in a niche practice.
Hardly niche now where it is. Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I must tell my listeners that Arwa is being very self-effacing. When we talk about knowledge-driven communications, which is like the baseline of AdFactors PR, the kind of bench that she spoke about, the strategic leaders, she leads right from the front. And look at the manner in which, from her educational qualifications and professional experience, how she stepped into AdFactors and having solid mentors like Madan Behl and Rajesh Chaturvedi. So I think great performance. Amazing performance, Arwa, and growth across the board. Tell me, you did mention the entrepreneurial spirit of Adfactors, the belief in understanding the opportunities and working towards them because there are so many. And all of that has been is right in front of us, the results, in terms of the growth that BFSI has achieved. But still tell me, apart from entrepreneurial spirit and the smart, focused, objectives-driven working, what else is there in the Adfactors DNA and priorities, etc., that has been powering this growth and market respect?
I think respect and transparency as well.
Lovely.
And also because, look, let's face it, why do most clients are drawn towards us is because of domain knowledge. Right? And the understanding of that space. All of our people, even at the tier 2 level of management within BFSI, are those who are either from finance or allied backgrounds. So they're journalists, understanding of finance. And if we even have people who do not come from that background of finance, we have this acute interest in training them and ensuring that they understand that space. So that, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to counsel your client. And that is of paramount importance. And I think, therefore, Adfactors' own interest in ensuring learning and development of an individual is, I think, at a very exponential level. And that makes for a difference, I think, as well.
Lovely. In fact, I'm going to come back to you in a bit about the L&D aspect at Adfactors PR, which totally drives into and is driven by the knowledge-driven communications that Adfactors promises and offers. Arwa, in the beginning, when I was introducing you, I mentioned just a few of your solid, amazing, top-tier clients who've been very, very happy, and there are so very many more. So obviously, all that you've said so far is proof that you enjoy excellent relationships based upon mutual respect and trust with your clients. So, Arwa, what makes for a successful agency-client partnership? That seems to be the bedrock of working in informed and trusting unison towards every single objective.
I think trust and faith in each other. We manage the reputation for a client, and therefore for us, our client is our most important person.
Sure.
Right? Now, there are times, and I've heard this many times over, that client doesn't understand what is going on. But frankly, are you understanding what your client is going through? And why is the demand, if at all, if it is unreal, why is it so? So there are two approaches. One is that you understand that demand and act upon it and deliver, Or the other thing is to counsel the client and understand really what is the core of the issue and address that.
Right.
So the minute you do client servicing from that lens, you will never have a situation where you are not aligned.
Correct.
And that is the bedrock of really a very strong relationship. So I won't say that in my journey I've had not situations of, where I have got absolutely upset or irritated, or for that matter, a client being in the similar situation with me. But I think what really happens is, and the beauty really happens is when you understand them and they understand you.
Excellent.
And if you're not striving for that, you're never going to be having a long term relationship. And thankfully, as the client comes in, that is my first and foremost and the most important conversation with my team, to ensure that the client is absolutely at a delight. And only when there is delight is there magic going to happen.
Wonderful. Thanks to the trust and the credibility that you bring to the table when you first meet the client, you are able to tell a client might say, I want this, but I think you'll be able to tell them, I respect that you want this, but in my view, you need this. And it's mutual partnership, it's mutual educating one another. Me, if I'm the client about my company, and you about, the rest of the world around me where you're trying to build my reputation. So yeah, absolutely. So trust, that's gold dust in terms of advice for everyone. In fact, Arwa, when you detailed the Adfactors PR DNA and capabilities earlier, that is what it is all about. So, a strategic consultancy is paid to look out for possible problems and disruptions, But nobody, not a single person, not just across India, but across the entire world could have predicted the COVID pandemic and lockdown. So, everyone had to hit the decks running when the pandemic and the lockdown struck like a crippling bolt from the blue. And they had to learn how to survive, what to do. It was a floundering boat everywhere. So you did mention in the passing about, the wonderful reassurance that Madan and Rajesh and, you senior team members, you all gave to everybody in the agency that nobody's losing their jobs. Now let's go out and do what we do best and prove ourselves. So my question is, what do you think was unique and important in the way your agency responded to and worked and operated and delivered during the pandemic, for both the clients as well as its employees and associates?
One very strong thing, communication.
Lovely. Yes.
Okay.
Tell
So
me more.
we communicated. And communication was not, okay, I'm not available at this particular time. So we were on all the time.
Okay.
Second was the fact that as leaders, we all met every single day for 365 days. And that is not just at the COVID period, but even after that as well. So we met every single day in that COVID period. Okay. And that was just only to reassure each other that we are around.
Right.
And that, and we also did the same thing with our clients and the teams all through the day. So towards the end of the day, we would all leaders meet to take an assessment of what is really happening to the business, what is happening to our people, what is happening to our client, and just sheerly being together made for so much of a difference. And I think the real benefit of this came in much later, but the fact that we all felt, and our families therefore, because every time you were on speaking on either Teams or Zoom, your family was in the background and they're all around you. And therefore, I think actually what happened in the periods of COVID, where we were all in a lockdown situation, is that you were not the only person employed for Adfactors. It was your whole family with you, and everybody became a family. So everybody was there. You could see in the background sometimes kids coming in and everybody having a conversation with the young kid that popped into the screen sometimes. And it was such a beautiful family kind of an organization rather than it being,
Mm.
this individual. So we never felt it at that point. I felt it was more homely at that point in time.
And this must have been only when the internal AdFactors PR discussions used to be held,
Absolutely,
of course. Yeah, correct.
But that was a large part of the time, right? And I don't think, no, even, and I would go a step further, Pawan, and say that even and sometimes we had even clients,
Family members.
family members and all come in and say hi. And I think even where I work with networks, PROI and GCP, where we were having those quarterly conversations again for everybody to know across the world if all is fine and all of that. And some family member would pop up and it would be, hey, hi. And it was like a very harmonious, lively time. Of course, you get burnt out with seeing the screen all the time. And I'm so happy that we are back again. And I, in fact, come to work every day since the lockdown has been over. But I think what happened at that point in time was communication.
Absolutely. Saying, I've got your back.
Yeah.
And everyone saying that to one another. Wonderful. So, Arwa, according to you, what will be or what are you seeing as the major trends that will lead or are leading now the industry in the post-pandemic world that we are in already, and in which the need, opportunity and sentiment for growth is very strong now. So, what do you think is going to drive the PR, strategic comms, industry sector in India across various parts of the business?
Look, I honestly am not a fortune teller. Okay.
Right.
But what I do read and interpret from that, okay, neither am I a great visionary. I think Madan is, and he can take the credit for it. We just follow what he does sometimes. And I think he just has this rabbit out of the hat all the time.
Yeah.
But I would say that the way the world is in a situation, and then there is lot of economy that is changing drastically. You have the Ukraine war at one end, and then you have some other conversation, US China, that is happening at the other end. And you are in India, which is sitting at a very sweet spot because it is now a discussion of China plus one, and that happens to be India, and therefore there is growth that is happening. Manufacturing is a conversation everybody is doing. And at the same time, you also have funding winter, which is going on, and that is also something which is happening. And then at the other end, you have Chat GPT and AI, which is disrupting the world and the digital world, and many more things that you cannot even envisage that can happen in the future. So in all of this, it is an opportunity time for PR. All you need to do is that you have to keep your eyes wide open, look for the opportunity and just move in that direction, and therefore success is for you to take.
Right.
And therefore that's how I see it. So, but all of these opportunities are immense, and India, as some of the experts say it, is going to be it's already on a rise, and it's certainly definitely in every conversation globally. So we will have more fun days in the future and as we go along.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, about 5 odd years ago, a lot of the international global think tank was saying that now that India is going to, and it already has the largest, young population cohort in the whole world. And they were looking at Gen Z in the US about 6-7 years ago, where Gen Z youngsters were saying, I want to be my own boss. I don't want to have a job. And from that perspective, everybody was thinking that they'd be entrepreneurs. And the world said that India is going to be, and I think it already is, the capital of innovation for the world. Because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wants to do interesting things and think of unique things. So yes, the opportunity is huge. Absolutely. And you said, which is what my next question springs from, you mentioned that it's all about seeing the opportunity and being prepared for it and going ahead and getting it. So part of the preparation for it obviously is learning and development, which, as you said, has been one of the pillars of the DNA of AdFactors PR. But tell me a little more. about the kind of learning and development initiatives. Even if they are random, they come to you from across the years of various things that Adfactors PR has done for different practices, different people, across levels, across categories of, kinds of services and roles, etc. Take it away. Tell us.
So some of them are internal learnings and some of them are external learnings. So Pawan, upskilling and training has been a pillar for Adfactors now for a very long time. Even in the initial years, there were leadership trainings, whether it was with Harvard or ISB. We all of us have gone through the senior leadership at the same time, the middle management as well. Other than that, for BFSI, a couple of things that we do is there is BSc Institute, where some of our younger team members would want to understand capital markets, and therefore that's something that we do. Every month we run, and seniors who have been either journalists or come from the industry also take on those sessions for the younger ones. Some of the other trainings that in the time that we've done is like in fact, the best thing that happened was that when digital conversation was going on, and this is pre-COVID, we all went through all the entire client servicing of Adfactors, went through an upgrade course in digital marketing. So we all understand digital and we all understand digital marketing as well. So that's the training that we went through. And very recently, 1,000 of us went through the Chat GPT training as well. So today, if a client wants an understanding on what happens in or is happening in the world of AI, and what are the things that you need to be careful and what are the things that you need to use to your advantage, we can have that conversation and dialogue with the client on AI and how the world is changing. All of these things equip us to be better consultants and better at our craft. And I think that's the area of interest Madan has always had. And it is something that we will continue to leverage on.
Excellent. In fact, you mentioned the digital marketing program from Upgrad. I think it was a 6 to 7 month program, and it was not one of those small, cheaper Coursera kind of programs. No offense to Coursera, every different courses for different folks, and respect for them. But this was a 6-7 month program, and it was a pretty hefty amount per head, but it was just an investment. And even the Kindles, how many Kindles did you all give out to executives?
I can't even remember the number. But that was again to instill reading.
Yeah.
The other thing from a BFSI new economy perspective that we went through, it was an IIM course in fintech and blockchain.
Okay.
That's another thing that we did. And so today, when a client talks of funding winter or a down round that happens, okay, we understand it and we know it. So that's another thing that we know. Now, some of us are also going through public policy with Takshashila. So that is another training that we are doing. Again, all of this is understanding the play in the market well enough to be able to then communicate and articulate it well. And more importantly, consult to your client in the way that would be appropriate in current times and not prehistoric.
Oh, lovely. Well said. Well said. No, truly, education is what truly, and information, being informed and knowing what to ask and what to look for and preempt. Amazing. And this is something that grows organically. There is no black hat SEO to pick up knowledge. But I think Adfactors PR is known and respected to be an agency that has been constantly investing in and helping, encouraging its people. And I think that also keeps them enthralled and engaged. I mean, I know a trainee who joined your team and who today leads large clients and has been here for, I think, 10, 15 years, which is like
15 years.
Amazing. That's the quality of good leadership.
And they came in from campus and this is their first job and they haven't left.
Wow. And well, they were lucky. I mean, they entered an agency that was already right on top. And where do you go from the top but take it higher? But yeah, kudos to you guys and, the whole atmosphere that you've created for young communicators to rise. So, on the personal professional front, Arwa, tell me, what are the most important things that your profession has taught you over the past 2 decades?
Patience.
Okay.
I think a lot of people will agree that I have changed a lot over time.
Okay.
From the person that I was to the person that I am today.
Mm.
And one of the principal changes that has happened in me is I've built and developed a lot of patience.
Okay.
So that is one thing I think has changed and from where I started the journey. But by and large, I think I'm still the same person.
No, patience is amazing because you sit back and listen, you respond, you don't react. Absolutely, absolutely.
The one thing that has not changed, I can say, is energy.
That's
I
good.
came in as a very energetic person, and that's one thing that has stayed with me. So
Wonderful. More strength to you.
So for me, 9 to 5 doesn't work at all. People say you are a workaholic, you like work. I would say I love my work.
Lovely.
So for me, it's not work. Actually, it is what I like to do and I love to do. And therefore, date, time, where I am doesn't matter.
Yeah. And you also emotionally own your practice, your whole business and the agency today. And even across the industry, there is this whole thing of mentoring them. And Kabir, and I tell you, it's a Hindi doha. हिंदी है या खड़ी बोली है क्या है, लेकिन मैं इसको पढ़ूंगा जरूर और वो आपके लिए. Because you said you become more patient now, but there is this doha about the teacher and the pupil relationship. Guru Kumhar, Shishya Kumbh hai. Kumbh is the clay pot. Gadi gadi kaadhe khot. Antar baah sahar de, bahar bahe chot. The whole point is you got to mold them and, so whatever works, as long as it's done with love and with a good intention, that's important. So, Arwa, I'm sure you must have had mentors like that yourself. You yourself have been a huge mentor for a lot of people across the industry, even in the agency and outside, who say good things about you, and so do your clients. I know them. But tell me about your inspiration or your source of inspiration. Who has, Arwa, or have been your own guides and mentors, and what do you admire or like most about them?
Okay, so I think I got married very young.
Okay.
The first one, I think, was my mom.
Okay.
Okay. She has taught me to be a go-getter.
Right.
And in her case, I think the way she taught me was, you can't do it. And so I never liked it when somebody said you can't do it. And therefore I did it.
Wow. Reverse psychology.
So it was reverse psychology. And that's what she used it. But I loved her for that. Because what I am today is because of that grooming that she's done. And as I mentioned earlier, I got married very young. So I was very influenced by my husband. And he's been a great source of energy for me.
Wow.
He has been a person who has never said no. And you find it very rare, given the fact that I come from a community which is, and from equally well from a family which is very orthodox. So my mother wasn't. My husband isn't. And therefore, I'm the only one in my family who works, as in both my mama and my father's side. So that freedom, I think, and letting me be was, I think, what I admire about Fauzan, who incidentally is also a very well-known person. So him. And then in my work life, I would say Madan and Rajesh. Madan has had a huge influence in the way I think, in the way I operate, in the way the ethos of my life are.
Oh, lovely.
So,
It's deep.
like, for example, there are certain things that Adfactors is very clear it will not do. Okay. Which is alcohol, tobacco, meat processing, all of this. We will not do work for such clients.
Despite the tons of money they're willing to pay.
Yeah. But it's a ethos and a value. So that has taught me my values. So that has shaped me. So I'm very clear on certain things that I will not do as well. So that I think is a great thing that I have learned. Relationship building is something I've learned from Rajesh. And the other individual who has more faith in me than I have in myself is Nijay, our current CEO. I think I owe him a lot because he is just this fantastic human being. And I always draw a lot of energy from him. With Nijay, the go-getter that my mother was all about, I see that with Nijay.
Okay.
And that, I think, is a role that he has played. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think these are the few people. I would also say one more individual, and I don't think I can ever go without saying his name is Dr. Rajay.
Oh, yes.
I think the he and I have a very lovely relationship, and I cannot have a boss who does not inspire me. And in all of these, whatever growth that I have had, he's always been ahead of the curve, and that's I every time learn from him.
Wow. One more thing I wanted to ask you about was what is it that you like about them? And I see the manifestation of that one quality that I know Madan Bahel is very famous for also and loved for is the humility that he brings to the table. And I see that in your reference to how Dr. Rajay has always inspired you and how you've always learned. So really, these are intangibles. They are all how our DNA gets woven, by the good people around us. So wonderful. You've been very lucky.
I mean, there are many names actually. I can.
Okay.
So yeah, that list actually would be endless. I can also talk about in my previous job that I was in, two individuals. Anjali Patil, she was my boss and then is now my client. Amazing lady. I
Wow.
learned a lot from her, and who also became my client is Ajay Kakkar.
Right. No, he's also a friend and he does so much of great work for the entire marketing industry. In fact, he's going to be one of my guests on this series soon. Hopefully, we just need to be able to meet. But sure, I must tell him about this, and I'm sure he'll be delighted to hear this. So, tell me a related question now, okay? Answer this. When you're picking fresh graduates from management or comm schools, whether from the space or not, with any basic, let's say HR has checked all the boxes and they seem to fit your requirement and your brief to them. What kind of person will always make the cut as far as you're concerned and who will not? What do they have to have and what is a deal breaker for you? This is just so it's guidance for youngsters who are looking at trying to join the best place.
Laziness is a deal breaker for me.
Okay.
So somebody who's going to join the FS team needs to know that it is hard work and there is no shortcut.
Right.
So this is one thing that I will always look for. I can let go of a lot of things, but this is one thing that I will want because we live in a very regulated market. The financial services is very regulated and therefore caution is more important, flamboyance is less. And therefore, these are some of the things that I would always look for.
Excellent. Great advice. This is MVP, the Master's Voice podcast from Mediabrief.com. I'm Pawan R. Chawla. With me is Arwa Husain, respected strategic comms thought leader and mentor and guide to business leaders across the spectrum of BFSI and more. Arwa, what advice would you give your client leaders on having a great client-agency relationship?
When a client hires you, has already reposed faith and trust in you because they have decided to be with you. And the responsibility is actually more of the agency to ensure that trust that the client has reposed in you is not broken. And therefore, I think it's less about what I would want from them, but I think it's more about what we give them. And that's how I would see it. I think the first journey they cross. The second journey is ours to do.
Wonderful. That's great advice, Arwa. More strength to you and your wonderful team at AdFactors PR. So, Arwa, I've enjoyed my conversation with you. So many insights and so much guidance and inspiration for every custodian of brand reputation and more. What did you feel about your chat with me today on MVP, the Master's Voice podcast from Mediabrief?
It's been fantastic, Pawan. Honestly, I have only started listening to podcasts maybe 6 months ago. And I do realize the growing need. And I think what you're doing is fantastic. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And look forward to many more such chats, even if it is not a podcast. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you for your kind words, Arwa, and for being so gracious with your praise and for the time. And thanks also to Nikhil Punshi of AdFactors PR from your team for having made this interaction possible. So, thank you, Arwa.
Thank you, Pawan.
The remarkable Arwa Husain, Director of Financial Services at Adfactors PR, one of the most respected leaders in strategic comms across BFSI and beyond, was my distinguished guest on this episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast. I hope you too were inspired by Arwa and loved the insights she shared. I absolutely did. Till we meet again in the next episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast series on Mediabrief.com, this is your host and friend Pawan Chawla saying, take care, stay safe, bye-bye.